we hear a lot about those things. Now, in our context, we talk about organizational culture. And that can even break down into, so when Edgar Schein wrote about organizational culture, he talked about like monolithic culture. Now he's saying there is no culture, there are cultures. And we know that when you talk to sales, they say, oh, software developers. You know, software developers say, oh, testers. Because there are professional cultures, and if there's not understanding across them, there can be friction. Gender, harder to talk about. I tackled that one last week at the XP conference, and there's some people who are not happy about that. And then generational. We talk more about that now. I'm not sure we know what to do with it. We have people who are coming out of really different assumptions who are born in the 1950s, in the 1970s, in the 1990s. Put those together in the workplace, and the assumptions are different, and the feeling that they're not like us. And beliefs, which can be very hard to talk about. And in some places we do talk about them, and in some places we say taboo, we don't talk about them. But there are many kinds of cultures that we need to deal with in the workplace. And the fact is that the culture of this room will be the sum of the people who are here and what we bring in. And there are things I can see that there are people here of different genders, I see different ages. I see those things and right away I make assumptions. I say, oh, you know, you're a woman, so you must be like this. How valid can that possibly be? I don't know her. But the mind simplifies. It's a natural thing the mind does, but it's not really helpful when it comes to dealing with humans, and we're so much better at picking up, processing these subtle pieces of information if we get the chance. This game gives us a chance to see each other as human beings and start to see, first of all, where we're similar, surprisingly, and other places where we're different and we didn't know we were different, so we can take into account each other's differences.
At the end of the game, are we going to prove this may not matters and sometimes there may be an overlap?
At the end of the game, you will be human beings who see each other better. You will have perhaps, hopefully, had some ahas about how to use storytelling and questioning to change the feel of a group. The purpose of using this is designed by an organizational development consultant who's been working for many years in the field of mergers and acquisitions. He would use it, for example, he initially created it, for example, a Japanese company merges with a French company. These people need to work together and they're like, oh, the Japanese make me crazy. And so because of that, they create all these contorted processes and hidden conversations that slow down the work. And he felt that, darn it, we need to be effective now, and to do that we need to deal with each other as human beings. And so he created this game, but we're finding it also works in many places. And we would like to bring it to peace work, to youth work. There's now a German version, we're hoping for a French version. I should tell you up front, it's not a game you can buy because it's actually part of a facilitated workshop, but we're looking for people to join the facilitator community. And that's why I'm doing it here, because only people who understand facilitation can join the facilitator community. You can't get it because you think it's cool for your company. You have to be somebody who understands how to hold the space and just let people play the game. And I think those people are here.
That's one of the reasons I'm trying to understand here, because when we break this into pieces, right? So the example you gave, the Japan company merging with French, so they are in two different countries. Now they start going to work together.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at pretty much most of the setup what we have here,
mm-hmm.
people are from different countries,
mm-hmm.
but they are working in the professional field like last 10 years or 15 years,
mm-hmm.
or maybe last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
They maybe gone through some schools here and then they started working,
mm-hmm.
which means they are no longer, even though they are by birth, they are belongs to
So
Japan.
you walk in and I say, aha, a foreigner, I label you foreigner, and in fact, you may have absorbed more culture of America than me, a Canadian.
That's true.
And so the point is to ask questions about basic motivators and values, and people say, gosh, he's just like me. And start to reframe or remove the labels.
Right. Yeah.
So that we start talking to each other based on reality rather than these simplifications we have about each other. Sound useful? I learned it at Berlin Change Days, where they played it with more than 50 strangers, and it was the first time in a conference of too many talking head sessions that people actually looked at each other and talked, and it was wonderful. And we think it's really useful for opening a conference, because so many of you I've touched in light ways in the sessions, but I still haven't talked to you. You're going to talk to each other now. I hope you enjoy it. Let's see what else is in the notes here. I don't want to give you too much explanation because you're game players and you're facilitators. So here's how the game works. The game uses appreciative inquiry, storytelling, and something else. I can never make a full list in my head. It's just a thing in my brain.
What was the first one?
Appreciative inquiry. Appreciative inquiry is asking people about, to share something that works, so that people get to talk about a positive thing. We also have questions about, there are 6 kinds of cards, and I'll put those on the table for you. Have you played Trivial Pursuit?
Yes.
So it's similar to that. You go around the board. The colors of the cards match the colors on the board. And as you go around, you're going to try to, each person is going to try to collect a card of each color. The types of cards are, for example, my questions about your beliefs, and wisdom questions. These are questions that include a quote of some sort and the opportunity to comment on a quote. Behavior questions. How do I or other people act? Trap questions have a scenario and ask you to comment on it. Roots questions are about where we come from. And quickie questions have a special function. When you hit a quickie question, if you land on the one purple field, and if things get slow, I may ask you to do a quickie question. You pick it up, you read it, and you answer it like that. Pass it to the next person. 3 people answer it in a row. That's it. So it's just to sort of liven things up. Each of you will have a chance to answer every question. There's no need to agree on the answers. What we want to do is practice listening and observing. So imagine that you're a team that had never met before and you're being told you have to accomplish something very challenging and you're worried that it's too tight. You don't have enough time, you don't know each other. So you're observing and learning about each other. As you answer these questions, you'll be learning things that will be useful to you in creating your work. So the way this game is intended to be used is not just as a standalone for fun, but because there is a problem in the business that the team needs to accelerate and there are things holding it back. There are communication issues or prejudices or misunderstandings. And so it's framed inside a facilitation where you talk about the business need, you play the game, and then at the end you also have another activity, which would be some kind of a moving forward activity. So now what kind of culture do we want to have together moving forward? And the concept, helping teach the concept that we get to choose the culture that we work in. And now that we know each other and trust each other a little better, we can design a culture or start to design a culture that will make work more effective. And of course, I'm sure you've heard the concept of living agreements. So basically you would be starting to design working agreements, and these need to be living agreements because we don't know everything yet. So you create an agreement and you agree to change it when it needs to be changed. So this could be the beginning of a chartering process, for example, using something like the book Liftoff. But this one breaks down some of the barriers, breaks the ice. Any questions? It's not about the gameplay itself, but about what we're doing here. Okay.
Is that videotape?
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's just that the things I would say for, an audience of the internet are different from what I might say
If
with
you want me to stop, I
individuals.
will. I have no problem.
Yeah,
So I
I'd
wanna know
suggest
which one.
I would suggest that we stop
Okay.
once we start playing.
Okay, I'll just stop it now.
Thank you, and thanks for